railway line.
Thanks, Adrian. Here at Westminster today, MPs have been discussing the controversial HS2 rail project for England. But it's worth reminding ourselves of efforts to improve rail links back home. It looks like the south is being looked after, with electrification of the main line to Swansea and the Valley lines. But in the north, there are still no firm plans to electrify the main line to Holyhead. And there are also calls for the opening of other lines. The age of steam may have long gone, but in a throwback to the past, the Welsh Highland Railway has become a major tourist attraction in North Wales. The trains now run from Porthmadog to here at Caernarfon station, as the railway has seen steady expansion.
We reopened back through to Porthmadog. We now have 40 miles of railway, including the Ffestiniog, which goes up to Ffestiniog. We're probably on target for about 400,000 visitors this year.
This is one of the few new pieces of track to be laid in North Wales in recent years, but it's for the Welsh Highland, not for modern trains. Enthusiasts say restoring the Caernarfon to Bangor train link for conventional carriages would help the economy.
It would bring more people from the North Wales resorts, from Liverpool and Manchester, to Caernarfon, and it would help the area because there'll be fewer cars coming down here. At the moment, you'd have to come by bus or car. To give you an idea of the level of traffic involved, there are 10 buses a day between Bangor and Caernarfon, so there's a real demand for a connection between the two towns.
They argue it could be done as part of electrifying the North Wales main line. A campaign which seems to be gathering pace, even though estimates place the bill at over £1 billion.
Yes, we've got enterprise zones in the east and the west of North Wales, which will definitely benefit, but it's growing and growing as a tourist centre, North Wales, and to get the link by electrification will certainly be a benefit.
Last year it was announced the South Wales main line would be electrified. The route from London to Crewe has already been upgraded. And one expert says electrifying the line all the way to Holyhead would offer several advantages.
There is an image factor, there is also an operational factor. It would be cheaper to run those trains on the West Coast Main Line franchise, currently in Virgin's hands, as electric trains rather than diesel trains.
The North-South rail link has also been under scrutiny, with calls for greater capacity. Back in 2008, the Welsh Government promised to fund the dualling of this line between Wrexham and Chester. But earlier this year, Transport Minister Edwina Hart announced the £36 million scheme had been put on hold, following concerns over value for money. But last month came this announcement.
I have actually today agreed a £44 million scheme with Network Rail to be delivered by spring 2015, which is to improve the north-south journey times and links for Wrexham. It will involve the Saltney redoubling, and the revised scheme will ensure that there's going to be massive improvements on the line and will also allow us to then look at additional capacity.
I think there's some extensive work gone on behind the scenes with the Welsh Government, so that the people who use that stretch of the North Wales railway line and will now see a huge benefit.
In a statement, Network Rail say their focus is now on the design and planning of the scheme. But supporters know the real prize is the electrification of the main line, a far more costly and demanding task. Howard Williams, we've heard a lot about these kind of different ideas for our rail infrastructure. How likely is it, especially maybe the Bangor-Caernarfon link, how likely is it that will be restored?
Well, it's going to cost a good deal of money. I've heard figures of around 40 million. And by the way, the figure that I've heard for electrification to Holyhead is more like 320 million rather than 1 billion. But the money should be there, had the Assembly the right to spend it. But that's in the hands of governments down here and in the hands of Network Rail, I'm afraid.
I must note the billion isn't our figure, by the way. But Glyn Davis, North Wales electrification, Stuart Cole saying, you know, these plans were on the table, 70s, 80s. Why hasn't this happened?
Well, you'll have to ask the
previous government, because we didn't see any electrification at all. I mean, we actually got the announcement for South Wales, which is terrific news for us. I think, as part of the discussions about HS2, there's a pretty good chance we'll be able to have electrification of the North Wales line coming through as part of the programme as well. I think over the last year, the prospects for electrification of rail in Wales are pretty good.
I'm sure Ian Lucas would disagree with you on that point.
Well, can I just say there's been a massive improvement in the West Coast Main Line under the last Labour government, which is hugely improved connections from Wrexham down to London, and those of us who travel regularly know that. This announcement by the Assembly of the extra investment in dualling the Wrexham-Chester line is also incredibly important, and the whole region spoke with one voice on this issue.
But on that point, that's been mentioned several times, hasn't it? It's been announced before. How important is it this actually happens?
This is crucial. It's absolutely crucial, and it's going to happen. That announcement has been made, and what we need to do is open up the connections from North Wales through to Manchester Airport, through to Liverpool Airport, for our industrial economy locally to have a 21st century public transport system.
Mark Williams, we know you've made representations, shall we say, about links to Aberystwyth. Is it maybe, when that franchise comes up, is that maybe the time to look again at some of these routes?
Inevitably, that is the time, but I think the consensus in our community is that we need action on this now. And yeah, absolutely, the 21st century rail network and system that's eluded mid-Wales. While most of the country is now talking about electrification and reopening lines, we haven't got an hourly service out of Aberystwyth. So, we do look to the Assembly government. They've embarked on a consultation on that to deliver the goods on that. It's essential for the same economic reasons that we heard on your film, and for what my colleagues have been saying.
Mark, your government and Glyn's government is spending 40 billion on HS2, and as far as I can see, we're not getting a penny of that in Wales. And not only that, but the KPMG report last week showed that Wales is going to lose out directly because of it.
I'm not a fan of the government that the Liberal Democrats and the Conservatives have, but the fact is the West Coast Main Line development hugely benefited North Wales, and in the same way HS2 comes to Crewe, which will benefit Wrexham, which is a very short distance from Crewe. We need to cross that border with excellent rail services. The investment from the Welsh Government that's just been announced will start to do that, and we need to use that to exploit HS2 too.
What do you make of that, Howard Williams?
Well,
people say about Crewe and the links there.
The report published last week shows that Wales will lose out in general. Cardiff, for example, losing 70 million's worth. The Valley's losing 30. I'm talking about Wales. And Wales in general will lose out. And not one of these gentlemen, I think, voted against HS2 this afternoon. They had an opportunity to stand up for Wales, and they did not.
We've got HS2. It's been a big discussion, and the big debate about HS2 is next year. There's going to be other forms of investment. The Secretary of State has made it very clear that alongside the HS2 investment, there's a lot of investment everywhere else. What we need now is for all of us to demand the share of that investment comes into Wales. Just asking for the money is just begging bull stuff. We need to have a big investment in the North Wales as a fair share
£3 billion,
in practical infrastructure investment which Wales needs, and the current government is delivering like probably never before.
Howard Williams, can I ask on that HS2? Are you actually asking for rail infrastructure to be devolved? Is that the argument here? Because clearly in that instance you would have to pay for South Wales electrification as well.
The HS2 runs from London to Manchester up to Leeds. Birmingham Leeds. Now that is an England-only project. It's quite obvious that it is, and the benefits for Wales will be for the North East, and I can see it be very good for Wrexham, but Wales in general will lose out, and we're not getting what's called a ban is consequential, our fair share of that money.
The majority of my constituents that travel from Aberystwyth down to London go via Birmingham. If we get the connectivity right, my constituents are going to be benefiting in the same way that others in North Wales will benefit from those times.
We've gone down that particular track. Let's turn to the electrification, back to the piece maybe. How likely is it that this will actually happen?
Well, I'm very interested in electrification within Wales of actually the Wrexham-Bidston line, which is a massively important branch line at the present time, which runs through the industrial heartland of Wrexham and Flintshire, and could benefit businesses like Airbus and also on the other side of the border, General Motors. Now, what we want is a public sector support for infrastructure within our region, and that sort of investment is hugely important as we go forward to make us more and more competitive.
I'd agree with you there, but if you want to spend, you have to get in the first place, and we haven't our hands on the levers which will allow us to do the spending.
Our time is fast disappearing. Glyn Davis, finally.
But wanting issues to be devolved to Cardiff, which is part of what the Commission is looking at. But what we need is the investment in HS2, which is likely to go ahead, and a fair proportion of that coming as investment into Wales. It doesn't need a Barnet consequential. It needs the investment in Wales, and that's what I think we'll see.
And an hourly service from Aberystwyth.
Time has beaten us here, unfortunately. That's it from us here in Westminster. Back to you, Adrian.
Well done at keeping them to time, Owain. Thank you very much. We'll take another short break now. When we come back, we'll reflect further on what tax and borrowing powers could mean for Wales and where